When Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, few could have predicted the extent to which this war would reshape modern warfare. From drone swarms to smartphone-coordinated artillery strikes, the conflict has become a brutal testing ground for innovation. But one moment stood out like something pulled from the pages of a Cold War spy novel: Ukraine strapping an American AGM-88 HARM missile, designed for NATO aircraft, onto a decades-old Soviet Su-27 flanker. This wasn't just a stunt, it was a symbol of survival, desperation, and a clever fusion of East meets West firepower. And when the missiles launched, what happened next shocked military observers around the world. The AGM-88 HARM is one of the most potent tools in NATO's arsenal against enemy radar systems. Created to detect and destroy surface-to-air missile radars, it flies at supersonic speeds and homes in on electromagnetic radiation emitted by radar installations. Originally developed by Texas Instruments and now produced by Raytheon, the missile was intended for Western aircraft like the F-16, F-A-18, and Tornado. Its avionics mounting system and launch protocols are all embedded within NATO digital frameworks firmly incompatible with the analog brains of old Soviet jets. But Ukraine, backed into a corner, didn't care about compatibility. They needed results. And necessity, as they say, is the mother of invention. Ukraine inherited dozens of Su-27s from the Soviet Union after its collapse in 1991. The Su-27 is a big, muscular air superiority fighter designed to counter the F-15 Eagle. With a top speed of Mach 2.35 and a combat radius of about 1,300 kilometers, it's a formidable presence in the sky even decades after its first flight. But the Su-27 was never meant to carry Western weapons. Its avionics are analog. Its fire control systems are incompatible with digital NATO interfaces, and the idea of wiring in something as advanced and digital as the HARM missile into this jet was almost absurd. As Russia's air defense umbrella blanketed occupied territories and blocked Ukrainian air and ground maneuvers, Kyiv needed a way to blind the Russian eye. Traditional SAID missions were limited by Ukraine's outdated weapons and airframes. Western-supplied HARM missiles were available, but there was a problem. Ukraine didn't have enough compatible aircraft like F-16s to use them, so Ukrainian engineers, with help from Western advisors, pulled off a Frankenstein-level feat of engineering. Using customized pylons, rewired bus systems, and improvised fire control tweaks, they managed to mount and launch a HARM missile from a Soviet Su-27. How exactly? The specifics are classified, but experts speculate that Ukrainian engineers bypassed the jet's native fire control system. Using a pre-programmed launch protocol fed through an external interface, possibly mounted in the cockpit or attached as an external pod. The key: simplicity. The HARM missile can be launched in what's called pre-briefed mode, where its target parameters are loaded before takeoff. That meant Ukraine could launch HARMs even without the aircraft talking directly to the missile in real time. And it worked. The first confirmed use of a HARM missile by a Ukrainian Su-27 reportedly occurred in late summer 2022, during a high-risk sortie near Kherson. Russian air defense crews, confident in their layered S-300 and Pantsir S-1 systems, were tracking incoming aircraft when suddenly their radar screens went dark. Multiple radar installations were hit within minutes. Satellite imagery later confirmed the destruction of at least 2 major SAM batteries, paving the way for a follow-up Ukrainian airstrike on ammunition depots and command centers. The Russian air defense network reeled. They weren't just facing legacy MiG-29s and drone swarms anymore. Now Ukrainian fighters could hunt radars from afar, challenging the long-standing air superiority advantage that Russia had held. The success of the HARM Su-27 integration stunned military analysts. First, it showed that the technological gap between Soviet and Western platforms could be bridged in a real combat zone, with enough motivation. Second, it marked a massive leap in Ukraine's airstrike capabilities, which had been limited to short-range munitions and risky attack runs. Even more impressively, this wasn't just a one-off. By the end of 2023, multiple Su-27s and even some MiG-29s had been seen carrying and launching HARM missiles, a feat many in the West thought impossible without full avionics overhauls. It was a stark warning to militaries worldwide: legacy platforms can still bite if you give them modern teeth. This fusion of East and West weaponry has implications that stretch far beyond Ukraine. Nations that still operate Soviet-era aircraft, India, Vietnam, Egypt, and many others, are now examining how they might integrate NATO munitions into their own fleets without full platform conversions. Meanwhile, Russia was forced to adapt. After the HARM threat emerged, Russian air defense crews began using radar discipline, minimizing emissions and shutting down systems when possible, an echo of Cold War cat-and-mouse games. Additionally, Russia ramped up deployment of decoy radars and mobile systems to confuse incoming harm. The electronic warfare battlefield heated up overnight, and Ukraine's innovation forced a change in Russia's tactics. But this success didn't come without risks. Flying a Su-27 at low altitude to deploy a HARM missile without real-time targeting data is dangerous. Ukrainian pilots had to memorize routes, trust preloaded intel, and accept the possibility of being shot down before their missiles found a target. Still, Ukrainian Air Force officials considered the risk worthwhile. In interviews with Western press, unnamed pilots described the exhilaration of finally being able to punch back at Russian SAM crews who had previously operated with impunity. For pilots, it wasn't just about a new capability, it was about revenge, survival, and reclaiming the skies over their homeland. There's something deeply symbolic about the image of a Soviet Su-27 carrying an American HARM missile. It's a reflection of Ukraine's transformation from a former Soviet republic into a Western-aligned state, fighting for its independence and sovereignty. It also represents a larger narrative, the crumbling of old military dogmas and the rise of hybrid warfare. In this conflict, victory doesn't go to the side with the newest jets or biggest bombs. It goes to the side that can adapt faster, innovate under pressure, and turn outdated tools into weapons of modern destruction. When Ukraine strapped a US HARM missile onto a Soviet Su-27, it was more than a tactical decision. It was a statement: we will use everything we have, combine everything you give us, and strike back. And what happened next? Russian air defense crews scrambled. SAM sites burned. The myth of invincibility surrounding Russian layered air defenses cracked under the weight of a missile fired from a jet older than some of the pilots flying it. It's a moment that will be studied in war colleges for years, how a country under siege pulled off one of the boldest acts of battlefield ingenuity in modern history. Ukraine didn't just fire a missile that day, they fired a warning shot to the world.